5 is too young. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Spill the Tea with me, Saint Ginger. And again, to remind you what we're doing here, I'm sitting down with a friend to talk about each song on my album, Beautiful Reckoning. And today I have Marcy Barlow with me, who I know from song camp. We were actually roommates. And she lives in Indiana, and she is essentially a lyricist, a writing background, but now writing for music. And so that is what Marcy is up to and how I know her. And the song you chose is
Where the Children Play.
I love this
Where
choice for
Children
us.
Play. I threw in that extra
Children Play. That is my bad. I did it. Where Children Play is the song. So, Marcy, can you tell me a little bit about why you chose this song? And then feel free to fire at me.
Okay. The reason why I chose this song is because honestly, it's my favorite song on the entire album. It's just a song that I just, from a lyrical perspective, just resonated very well with. And then on top of it, I really think it's the song out of the entire album that just really beautifully highlights sweet spots of your voice.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. The song is near and dear to me, and for lots of reasons. It's also one of my favorite to sing, probably because it sits in a really good spot for me. Yeah, so it definitely has some like emotional backing to it for me, and so it makes it a lot more interesting to sing. They're all interesting to sing, but this one just has a lot of heart that's deep for me. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. So what actually is the story behind the song? Like visually, the lyrics paint a picture for me, but it would help to know kind of where it lies in your heart.
This song is a translation of my childhood and growing up with parents who fought fairly loudly, to say the least. And I had built a fort in my closet, and it was my safe space, and it was the top shelf of the closet, and I would crawl up there when they'd start fighting, and I had like my stuffed animals up there and a blanket, and I probably had a book, and I had a hole in the wall to my brother so we could talk back and forth because he had a fort on the opposite side. So it was my safe place. And so this song is about having that safe place where you can go and get away from what's going on outside of your room, so to speak. And it was literally my room. I had shut the door, I'd be in the closet. And it's about like that time in my life, and also like what goes on behind closed doors that not everybody else actually sees, because there's different appearances of families outside of their own home.
Yeah, and I do think that first verse really does paint that picture of you sitting in your room and you're hearing the voices and you're just trying to find that escape. But I think the second piece of it is probably the second verse is where I probably resonated the most, and that's probably with the line like I've mentioned, the trauma bonded, they're just people who are hurt and trying to move forward. I can't remember the lyrics exactly in the order that they are.
The
But
line is trauma
it's
burden, and
yeah,
yeah, and it came in with trauma burden. It was really important to me that it stayed in. There's also like when I sing that, there's this
yeah.
thing that just happens in me. And yeah, it's such a acceptance of like we're all people and we all have trauma and we don't always know what to do with it. So that I appreciate that you see that in the second verse, because it was really important to me that there was some redemption of them,
Yeah, and I think
or at
it
least like understanding of them, and why the things were going on that were going on.
I just think it's such a universal thing that a lot of people they might not experience exactly what the first verse paints, but we all experience something that creates that feeling, and then we all get to a point in our lives and we look back and we're like, I kind of understand now that I'm a little bit older and got a little bit more experience behind us that they were just people too. And I think, that's what's so sweet about the whole thing is how it just all ties together.
Yeah, I think there's something really wonderful about that point in your life, whenever it is, because I think there's different points, so it's different levels of understanding of like your parents are just people. And my parents kind of were on a pretty high pedestal both in my life and in a lot of other people's lives. So it's a very interesting thing to like grow up in a home where people are really respected, and then but what's really going on. and then be able to have the perspective of, like, they're just people, and, um, they're just doing the best they can with what they've got. You don't feel that way when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, but, eventually you see it, hopefully you get the clarity and you get to see that, and hopefully you get the benefit of your parents growing, which I did. Not everybody does get that, and so my parents are very different people, and my mom is gone, as we know, but, before she left, she was not the same person.
Yeah. So I also know you're a very strong-willed, strong-minded person, so I'm sure a lot of this you already knew the core of what you were bringing to the table when you wrote this. How did the other people who you brought in to help with this song, how did they open up the song to help create it in a way that you didn't necessarily see coming?
I don't think it was necessarily that I didn't see it. I think that I saw it, but they helped me bring it to fruition. Sometimes, especially a song like this where it's so personal, it's harder to get it all organized. So I had the majority of the lyrics going in. There are a few that were thrown in, especially that Dennis Cook and that man and his like ability to throw out a first line. He's brilliant at time and space in a song and setting it. And so the 5 years too young is Dennis. And I had that, I had an age in there, and we picked an age because, it went on more than once, but we picked an age that felt right and sung right. And so it was Justin and Dennis and Joey, and they were just there and able to hold the space for what I needed to get out, and also then translate it into a form that made more sense because I had it all written out in like pieces as I tend to write. I write in pieces. Sometimes the song flows, but this one was a definite like, well, here's this verse and here's this verse, but which one's first? And this one's it. And the redemption verse, as I call it, I had they were trauma burdened and I had pieces of it just disorganized. And so they helped me really see it clearly. And I'm not always good with like A, B, C, A, whatever the lines are.
So
You know what we're talking about? It's a singer-songwriter thing where you're like, A and A are the first 2 lines or B, and then that's another style line. So, I'm not the best at that, and I tend to write a little wonky. I do eventually go back and make it cleaner, and that song was actually fairly clean, but they really just guided me to take what I had and make it better, and they did such a beautiful job. Because it's such a tender song, Dennis is just there's something about that one. And same with Justin, like, he has a different gift, like, they both and those 2 in a room together, they are now my team for the songs that are the ones that are like, "This is the song, but I don't know how to get it out well
yeah,
enough," or, "I don't know how to I have it out, but I can't." And they're gonna be working on some new stuff with me soon, hopefully. I don't know if they're booked yet. It's not my part. But, yeah, there's certain people that you work with that are for certain kinds of songs. It is very clear to me what those 2 are for.
yeah, I've not had the pleasure of actually sitting down and writing with Dennis, but I mean, just anything that I've seen him attached to and worked on, he just brings a dynamic to it. And then I have had the pleasure of working with Justin, and he's just so subtle in the way that he comes across. And I love that for you that you found that dynamic that really
Well, and
helped
with
you bring
Joey in
it
there too,
into,
because
yeah,
Joey's like a brother to me, and and, like, he understands me, he knows me very well because
that's
Joey got picked because of a very long conversation we had, and I was like, it's a no-brainer for me.
yeah.
Like, as my producer, it was like, "Oh, this is why we're working together." Um, and he's like family, and so having those 3 in a room, it's just there's a dynamic to it that's just different than any other right.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you were able to get that experience to bring what you wanted into this song. It's, I mean, I've probably got all your YouTube numbers out there because I've listened to it so much.
That's great because I get paid well for those.
Yeah,
Well,
because as we
well
know,
enough.
but I mean, also, like, I know that I've said to this to you several times. You just have this way with words that really tell the story and paint a picture, and I just love your writing style, and I think it's funny that you mentioned the AABBDD rhyme schemes because I'm still getting into it, and because I'm coming from, having written for like 30 years and we were taught to write in those schemes to kind of break out of that habit because it's beautiful, and like mine some very generic lines it seems like. So I'm just saying that to say, hey, it works. So don't try to.
I mean, there is definitely, I think that's what tends to happen is when I'm in a co-writing session, is we take what I've written and clean it up so that it actually makes sense in a format. I mean, sometimes a song comes full through with the melody, all of it's organized. It does happen, not all the time. And then I have songs that are just not meant to be in that format. There's a song on the album that is, as Joey and I call it, we're like, it's the weirdest song, but it works. And so it doesn't matter. Like if you like format it out on paper, you're like, but it isn't like, you don't even repeat the chorus. What is the chorus? And that's okay because it works.
Yeah.
So this is not that song. This has a chorus and some other things.
I mean, it just, can learn a lot still from just the way that you guys come in and bring things together, just sitting there and observing. So to watch you guys in action and then to see something come to fruition, even though it's not something that I specifically sat in and watched or you and I had conversations about, but it's I know I've been saying it's such a great thing because as you know, I'm new to this and this is just such a great experience to be out there learning all these new things. And how do you feel about how your circle of life kind of moment of how you're now at the right time at the right place to just kind of step out here and do your thing?
Well, I mean, you and I have talked about it, and I think other people know this because I'm pretty straightforward about it. Like, this was when I was meant to do this. I wasn't meant to do this before. And even though I tried several times, I could not have written the songs I'm writing now had I done this in my 20s. I'm afraid of what would have written in my 20s, honestly. I mean, I know what I've written in my 20s because I have them, and they'll never see the light of day.
Yeah.
What I wrote in my 30s and my 40s, I'm now admitting my age because I don't always say it. I'm going to leave it there. Some of that actually is on the album. So there's a time and a place for everything in our lives, and this was definitely the time for me. And I also now have the confidence that I lacked prior. Like in my 20s, I just didn't have the skin for it, which is really why there were so many starts and stops. I just didn't have the thickness of skin to put up with a lot of the stuff that happens. And, I haven't had that experience this time around because there's no reason for anybody there's nothing to be said, basically, that's going to take me down at this point.
Amazing.
See? You can try.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to get to that stage, but think, it's just a great lesson, that you could do it at any age, as long as you have the desire to go out there and, I mean, if you know what you want, then go for it.
And I'm very clear
Yeah.
on where I'm going. And some people might think I'm a little delulu, as the kids would say today. All the terms I learned at camp. Delulu? Bit?
Fire?
That one I knew. But there was some I was like, what in the world? Yes. So some would say I'm a little delulu. Some, there was something recently I saw that was like, is the next big thing. So, everybody's got their perspective of where they're going, and hopefully it's a positive one.
Agreed. Yeah, very much agreed.
Well, thank you, Marcy, so much for doing this with me today. It was really sweet to do this with you, especially because we were roommates and we're of the same age group.
I am of the opinion it's like, I have no problem saying
to just glide and not let anybody really know. I mean, the people that know me know, and I don't really care, but I'm not going to be like, outwardly celebrating. I mean, I will celebrate my birthdays, but nobody needs to know. It doesn't matter. So anyway, thank you so much.
You're
It's
welcome.
been a delight.
Thank you.
And I just really appreciate you taking the time.
No, thank you for having me. I really do love this song, and just being able to speak to it it's an honor.
Thank you.
Take me away.